Imagine a sand apocalypse where everything around is buried beneath endless sand dunes. Giant monsters lurk beneath the surface, and people fight over the last scraps of resources. And in this ruined sand world, there's only one boy who can control all the sand around him. Can you imagine what he's capable of? The entire world is in his hands, and his potential is limitless. So here's how it all began. 100 years ago, a beam of light struck Earth and consumed everything on the planet, turning the blue giant into one full of sand. What little was left of humanity built a stronghold of their own. Zeon, our protagonist, is a miserable peasant caught up in the middle of a few bastards who took joy in killing others. But our boy ain't no bitch because he responded back in kind, recalling how he never really killed a person. He had a small accident in which one guy tried to steal his stuff and ended up accidentally dying. The world has awakeners who are treated like gods. The thought that he had killed someone who had a connection to Lee Jiryong, someone who is awakened, terrified him. This same bastard remained unaffected by the kid's punch and slammed him aside, using his awakened powers to teach the rat a lesson. Fortunately, an accident caused the vehicle to flip over, injuring this bastard in the process. The driver, at the edge of his life, shared that they're being swallowed whole by a Godzilla-sized sandworm. Zeon had to cling for his life, knowing that his time had come since he was a weakling, that if he only was stronger, things would be different. The sandworm swallowed him, except the boy actually didn't die, shockingly finding himself alive in the creature's insides. This man decided to become the next Paul Atreides because he saw everything. The destroyed structures of humanity all came flooding to his senses, showing him what became of their marvelous planet. At that moment, he awakened his first ability for the first time and instinctively chanted Sandblaster, piercing a shot straight through the creature's side. Now that he had the power in the world to live, Zeon dared against his odds that he would use the sand to survive against the impossible. Zeon can feel every tiny beat of his heart. It's as if his body has charged with incredible energy. Understanding that this is the process of awakening, he clenches his fist. Meanwhile, we get this insane scene of the sandworm from Dune about to devour the tiny human. The creature reaches to swallow him whole, while Zeon stands there with balls of titanium, refusing to stand aside. Shockingly, some dude quickly intrudes to save his life, expressing that the kid is in his face. The dude throws Zeon flying into the air, causing him to hit the ground with a heavy crash. My guy spits out sand and questions how the hell this random dude managed to step him like Minato Namikaze out of the blue. But the moment he looks back up again, bro is terrified to witness that this guy drove a blade into the sandworm's neck, shooting out tar-like blood out of its body. The man teases the creature for making him climb up so high, wondering if he should send it all the way back down. Preparing his kick, he decides to drive his kick straight into the sword, pushing the monster all the way to its death. Our boy is shocked to his senses. The fact that someone as powerful as this random guy managed to take out this sandworm is no easy feat. It's actually Zeon's first encounter with the sandworm, and before he could even process his reaction, a blue-haired cute baddie comes up to him and reveals that it's Captain Jang Yongbeom being flashy as always. Again, Zeon has absolutely no idea how the hell these guys are stepping him like that. It's like they're popping out of thin air while the chick is busy complimenting her epic captain skills. One look at her body is enough to make him realize that this woman is immensely powerful, but even more so, the kid is confused why his body has started to freeze up. Yongbom expresses that a sandworm isn't even a tough opponent for him. Then he addresses Giselle, before looking to his side. The captain turns back to find these two mingling around. Giselle is playful and obedient to her captain, but she's having a hell of a time dragging Zeon around like a rag doll. In an instant, she overpowers my guy and pins him down, and I bet a lot of us would love to switch positions with this dude right now. Giselle playfully guesses the guy's rank and abilities, questioning what method she should use to find out. But just then, she notices something strange. The peculiarity is that Zeon is actually not an awakener at all. Pinned like that, our boy can't even believe what she's saying right now. Giselle continues to wreck his arm while telling the captain how the kid doesn't have a rank insignia at all. Zeon is confused, even reflecting that this chick might be blind because every awakener is meant to have an insignia. Watching the scene from the car, another teammate hollers at them to just hurry up already. Giselle asks for input from the captain, explaining how it's going to be weird if they just leave this fellow over here to die. I mean, our boy has complaints of his own because isn't this the same girl who nearly broke his arm just now? Yongbom stares down at the kid meeting eye to eye, before instructing Giselle to throw the kid at the back since he seemed to be headed to the mine. And well, in the next scene, we have our broken little ride filled with a rowdy group. Yongbeom's team isn't exactly the most peaceful kind. They're causing a ton of commotion. Meanwhile, our boy is pushed to the back and tied up like he's some kind of luggage. He listens to their talks until sand drifts into the vehicle. In reality, it's actually Zeon manipulating the flow of the sand itself, confirming that he has indeed awakened his powers. At the same time, he doesn't understand why no one can see his rank insignia, and taking one look at it, he finds the mark strange too. The color looks orange, but it actually matches the same color of the sand. The illuminated light of a mark always suggests the classification of the awakener. In other words, magic types typically have blue classification, combat manics have red orientation, and though there has been information about other kinds of awakeners, it's the first time Zeon has ever heard about anyone being able to manipulate sand. Even as he does so right now effortlessly, it's one of a kind. Unfortunately, he also knows that it's an F rank, but the good thing is that he has infinite potential, allowing him to adapt like the desert. Our boy is happy with what he's got, hoping to hide his powers until the time is right, because eventually, this man will be able to control the whole of the desert according to his will, and by extension, even dominate the planet, which is making me wonder if Bro's a hero or villain at this point. Anyway, we arrive at the gorgeous magic crystal mine. Zeon sees a checkpoint and mutters how things appear normal. One guy orders him to follow him around without barking anything, so the kid has no choice but to take his lead. Watching the scene from a distance, Giselle and Yongbum express how strange they feel about this kid. The fact that he's the only survivor can be pointed down to luck, except the captain rejects this idea strongly. You see, back then, when he was looking around, he saw the sandworm's gaping hole from one side of its body, meaning this kid is definitely involved. It's a shame for Yongbum to not even ask for the boy's name, because he thinks they're destined to cross paths once more. In the next scene, we get a bit of a twist. You see, the average mines are supposed to be full of tunnels, but here people are bustling around and enjoying festivities. Zeon did not anticipate such an outcome, while the guy handling him taunts him that he's going to call the supervisor soon, so the kid better stay put. Our boy isn't exactly happy that he's being left all to himself in a place like this, while the guy questions if he should favor him by adding a bullet to his head. He leaves bickering around, allowing the kid to do whatever he wants, because it won't matter anyway. That conversation aside, Zeon understands that he needs to eat something since he's so hungry. He scans around, finding a shop to fulfill his needs. At that moment, Zeon notices a poster on the wall advocating for the laborers to light up the city. The seller hands him a drink and asks if it's an inspiring movement. The man's hands are rough with scars covered all over, expressing how the real energy source of the city isn't mana stones. Zeon, who doesn't know where this conversation is headed, asks for the real energy source. Pointing towards the boy, he emphasizes that people like him, people like Zeon, are actually the real energy source. They're always instructed to do whatever, and there are always replacements to fill the gap too, so it's truly a magnificent and endless energy source. Our boy is annoyed that this dude is already roasting the crap out of him upon their first encounter, barking back that the old geezer should worry about his numbered days on the planet. The old man ushers the kid to understand that at his age, everything seems interesting. Also, he somehow knows about Zeon's descent inside the sandworm's body, which stuns the boy even more. The old geezer continues to berate him, sharing how a kid like him is going to end up in a sandworm's belly soon anyway, as this isn't a location for some kid to hide. Zeon defends himself that he's just here to make money, while this boomer points to the back, in the hopes of enlightening the boy with something eye-opening. What's at the back? Just a pile of junk? Zeon doesn't get the point, so the seller explains that he collected all that stuff one by one, and then he drops the bombshell. They're actually the remains of all the people who came here before, who met the same reality the kid is going to meet. Everyone here tries to resist the temptation of heading into the mines, but that's just how tempting mana stones are. Afraid of the worst death imaginable, these newbies try to sell everything just to survive, holding on to dear life as they sell off parts of their souls. But in the end, none of this matters. Nothing gets better for them, and what things they gather only end up slipping away. All of them meet the same fate, so he's now found it easier to directly tell these people that the mine will consume them. This bastard has the audacity to state that rats like Zeon and the ones who came before him won't even leave a name behind, and that he's ecstatic to see the remains of the kid after his death. Ignoring his rant with frustration, he asks for the price. The old geezer asks for 10 sol, which is an amount so ridiculous that Zeon screams at him for it. Apparently, every resource in here costs a big penny. Even the skewer he ate earlier is no different. Zeon talks down on the quality of the meat, before revealing that he doesn't even have the kind of money he's asking for. While he's justifying and defending himself on how they're trying to loot him, he doesn't get that all the other butchers and workers in the area are drawing out weapons to cut him down. Yes, they're that merciless. Zeon goes on and on about how he won't pay a single penny, only for one bastard to come around and flank him from behind. The fear of death overwhelms our boy for one moment, while the old man throws a riddle to the kid, asking him how an old man like him even runs a business in a place so shitty. It's because the answer is, they're all corrupt. Zeon looks back to see that he is confronted by more than a dozen men, all lined up to cut his body to shreds. Acting like some kind of mafia boss, the old man amusingly asks what this kid is going to do next. Zeon roars that he doesn't have anything to offer, that it's pointless to ask for this kind of money for a drink. Maintaining the advantage in the negotiation, he happily suggests a solution, eyeing down Zeon's mana stone in his pocket, believing that it's a fitting repayment. Our boy is frightened how all the rumors about his actions have spread like an eagle, while the scumbag continues to urge him to toss the stone over, that he'll even pitch a fair price. Zeon slams a powerful refusal, expressing that he had to go hell and back just to get this stone. He wants to talk things out with the old geezer, but it's clear that his words don't mean anything, because right in the next moment, a muscle maniac grabs his head and slams it down the table, even suggesting that they bury the brat. Pissed off, Zeon activates a sandblaster, and boom goes this guy's arm flying in the air. That's what you get for messing with the wrong guy. The same arm lands in the hands of the other men who were ready to kill Zeon. Refusing to discuss anything with words, Zeon deploys spikes of sand, slaughtering every corrupt man in the zone. Well, that's what he thought was going to happen in his head at least, because that cool action sequence doesn't happen in the real thing. Instead, we get Zeon bleeding from his nose and spacing out, cursing his fate. In the end, Bro has to toss the stone over to the old geezer, giving him everything that he wanted from this deal. The old man is impressed with the damn size of this thing, suggesting that it's about 100 sol. Again, it's a ridiculous price because Zeon fires back that it's at least 300 from its size. The old geezer has all the leverage, so he talks down on the kid once more, berating him for not becoming sandworm shit instead of coming here. Another table slam later, Zeon is reaching his limit and intending to blast his powers out of here. But even now, he knows that he's not strong enough to do anything. Zeon requests for a suitable bonus in exchange for the stone. The old corrupt geezer is fine with doing that, but he does advise him to beware of pickpocketers who are quick to steal anything. As per their first deal, he plays it nice and suggests that the kid can pick anything from the pile of junk. Rummaging around, our boy doesn't really find anything useful, and while he's sulking, the old man is intrigued with his behavior. The fact that the kid refuses to lose a single coin, this kind of pettiness is uncommon in a zone like this. Zeon plays around with junk clown costumes, but then he discovers something interesting, something that even the boss highlights as an interesting article. Our boy settles on this tiny hourglass for his bonus, and while he's leaving, the boss teases him once more for being selective with trash. Before heading out, Zeon asks for the old man's name, who announces loudly that he's Klexi. Our boy burns that name fresh in his memory, hoping that their paths never cross again, implying a direct threat. Klexi doesn't face any fear and returns to his side. In the next scene, the kid is busy inspecting the hourglass equipment. Zeon learns that it takes about 10 minutes for the measurement to run out. He's currently residing in his quarters, and in order to test his abilities, our boy takes a deep breath. Then he focuses all his attention on the tube, ordering the sand inside to move at once. To his shock, nothing actually happens. Bro humiliates himself by staring at the empty reflection, confused that his powers aren't actually related to awakening. His whole ability is a mystery, as he's never seen anyone use it before. But strangely enough, Zeon is getting weird vibes from the junkyard. This hourglass conveniently sitting there makes him think it was deliberately placed there, as if it was calling out to him with a new feeling. Before Bro could comprehend his feelings, an imbecile kicks the door down, questioning if he's the new kid who was brought here. Immediately, Zeon is cursed at and berated even more for not being at the mine already. Back Manhwa doesn't give no shits. Zeon tries to put respect on his own name by asking the dude to treat him nicely, only to get uppercutted straight to the face and launched to Kingdom Come. Manhwa gears up a second punch, shoving it deep inside the kid's abdomen, ordering him to shut the hell up. But that's not all. Zeon also gets stepped on like he's a piece of human meat, all because he upset this brute's ego. Manhwa calls him an unawakened loser who's got attitude issues, that people like him are meant to lay low and eat a beating to save their lives. After feeling satisfied beating a kid up, he orders Zeon to quickly start following him. Our boy gets up without chickening out. The first thing Bro says is that he's a psychopath, and that no matter what happens, Zeon will kill Manhwa someday. I love how Bro's collecting a hit list out here that he's going to use to take everyone out. In the third sector of the mine entrance, Zeon is brought to the main working side and quickly suited up. Food and gear costs are told in advance to be cut from his payment, and that the main goal is to collect mana stones like a dog. At first, our boy thinks it's a simple task, but before he could fire another question, his helmet is smashed open with Manhwa's pickaxe. This guy makes it clear that he won't care if the kid doesn't know how to swing a pickaxe, and that he'll also dock the payment for the helmet costs. Manhwa then directs the subordinate to throw Zeon into shaft number 972, which is supposed to be one of the worst places ever. Zeon doesn't really give a damn anymore and simply obeys orders, while his asshole manager emphasizes that if he doesn't return with a mana stone, he'll be executed on the spot. Talk about having the worst job ever. Here, in this hellscape of a mine, even the kid's subordinate explains that this is the worst location ever. It doesn't help that Zeon joined on the day Manhwa lost his money gambling, which surprises our boy that even a casino exists around the area. His buddy over here expresses that everything's available, no different from Neo Soul for that matter. Zeon thinks that with clowns like this shitty manager, it's sure for businesses like these to meet at least some promise. Our boy also doesn't know if he's going to be fine swinging a pickaxe because of his smooth skin, making it bruise easy. However, his new friend assures him that there won't be any trouble getting hurt down there. Because you see, not even a single person in the tunnel has gotten hurt, not even one. It's an ominous warning, but eventually they arrive at the designated tunnel. Our boy questions if he only needs to farm the mana crystals and return, but then the guy quickly cuts him off, saying that he actually won't be returning. After all, more than a dozen people have vanished just being here. 4 are betting on saving his life right this moment too. No one even knows if the rest of them died, but all this homeboy has to offer is an apology and his gratitude for venturing in a place so dangerous that no human could touch. Zeon shouts at him, realizing that all the others are dead. He wants the answers, but this guy literally leaves him behind to die. His audacity doesn't shake him. It fuels our boy to mine the crap out of this place, pissed off that they sent him here to die just because of their anger. Unfortunately, even with the first swing, the pickaxe collapses and slips out of his hand, bouncing all the way to the other side. Helplessly, Zeon tries to reach out for it, while at the same time wondering what kind of hellscape is he even supposed to survive. He was angry before, so he couldn't notice, but the mana in this part of the tunnel is extremely dense, making him wonder if the others could never feel it because they weren't awakened individuals. The density is so thick that it overwhelms him the deeper he goes, which also confirms that a normal person would experience mana oversaturation by now. Not knowing where the source of mana is coming from, Zeon discovers his pickaxe, which appears to be broken from the handle. He's just happy to find it, and right when he's feeling grateful for his fate, my dude steps on a literal void, frightening his eyeballs out. The abyss lures him under, stunning Zeon with the sudden appearance of a portal. His helmet? Snapped to the side, right next to the broken pickaxe too. This actually takes us into a flashback sequence of the boy's past, who lived a miserable life. All the people around him told him he was gonna die. The little kid had to fight tooth and nail just to make amends, and was beaten several times, all because he wanted the basic luxury of eating well. Every time he had a dream, others squashed it for him, and in the end, he even managed to kill someone, consumed by the feelings of both fear and guilt, thinking that his life was gonna be over now. The boy ran as fast as he could to get to a kind of life where he didn't need to worry about dying. Li Jiryong's name haunted him. Back to Zeon, we observe his knocked-out state after falling from the portal. Gathering himself, he gets up, questioning why this place feels so hot. After quickly taking notice of the surrounding ash, he curses his fate, because you see, this little hellscape led him directly into a fiery, dangerous dungeon. A stone stumbles its way past to Zeon, who grabs it, before realizing that this thing is scorching hot. Bro tosses it away immediately, cursing at the damn thing. This confirms one thing, that this dude is not in a dream. But the good thing is, the people in Neo Soul already have the experience of preparing for a dungeon descent. Sure, his hand is scorched right now, but he understands that this is volcanic ash. In other words, if Zeon doesn't make it out of this place soon, he'll be in deep trouble. Ripping off a piece of his pants, he quickly bandages his mouth, externalizing that if this dungeon has an entrance point, then an exit must also be around the corner. His main suspicion is at the peak of the volcanic outburst, which is the highest point in this dungeon. Staying here means certain death. The volcanic ash will suffocate him, so with no monsters around, this is the best chance my guy has to take the shortest route. Armed with that confidence, he bolts with incredible speeds, glazing himself as the all-powerful Zeon, the man who never gives up in any hurdle. He does say all of that, but my guy barely survived an encounter with the hot lava just now. To make things worse, the shattered terrain breaks off and sends him straight down. Zeon only survives because his arms manage to hold on, nearly getting his ass burnt by the hot lava. Still brute forcing his way through, Bro declares that a tiny bit of lava won't scare him off. Again, he barely makes it out alive, panting for his life for another near-death experience. Instead of fear, frustration engulfs him. All his anger is directed at the bastard Manhwa, the bitch who tossed him here like dead weight. Zeon assures him that he'll kill this dude with his bare hands when he makes it out alive, but soon after he collects himself after managing his anger. Right now, he has the conviction to survive no matter what happens. He's a fighter who doesn't want to stay down no matter what. From his current position, he only needs 4 more jumps to cross over to the highest point, and then he'll escape certain death. Instead of pondering every step, he intends to blitz forward with no lingering thoughts slowing him down. After all, my guy shares no intentions of letting his life rot in a shitty dungeon like this. The words, "I won't stop," become destiny-defining, and right when you have a sliver of hope for this kid, Godzilla's younger cousin explodes out of the lava to devour him. The creature successfully snaps him into his mouth, before splashing into the bubbling hot lava once more. Interestingly, this giant alligator continues on with its day like nothing happened, but then its eyes quickly dart up towards a hanging cliff. Zeon has actually survived. He managed to reach the other side and holds on with his powers for dear life. The good thing? This difficult encounter has taught him that he could also manipulate volcanic ash to some extent, which helped save his life just now. He descends next to the monster's snout, nearly passing out from the engorging intense heat. The dungeon is way too harsh. Just the soul environment here is worse than the inhabiting monsters Bro has to deal with. With the current situation, my guy can just sense his nose burning from the inside, causing him trouble just having to breathe. His consciousness is wavering, and with flickers of light left, The thought of death crosses Xion's mind for God knows how many times. Refusing to quit and channeling the spirit of David Goggins, this man gets back up, reminding himself of his own words from earlier. My man's motivation is that he hasn't even had a girlfriend yet, so dying here wouldn't be fair. I'm starting to think he's Denji's cousin from Chainsaw Man, and by the way, that ending for part 2 was ass. Anyway, Xion controls the volcanic ash, apologizing to his uncle in advance for what he's about to do next. The giant monster erupts from the lava for its second attack. Our boy retaliates to the best of his ability to survive. Out of nowhere, a voice graces him, praising his unique ability. Xion is startled by the person, while the same voice expresses great interest in his sand manipulation ability. Here, an old man descends to save his life, falling from the sky as a blessing sent from heaven. The old geezer grabs his sword right before his descent, stunning Xion. This man torpedoes down with immense speeds, to the point he crashes down with a heavy blow against the monster's flesh. That single attack sends shockwaves and alters the very course of the lava, spiraling debris in every direction and causing Xion to nearly get annihilated from the impact. Our boy is shivering from the mere force of that impact, literally causing his eardrums to burst while knocking his senses out. Glancing ahead to find the old man as well as the state of the monster, Xion discovers that the creature has been diced in half. This foreign feeling is completely different to him. The man standing before him isn't some ordinary strong awakener. This guy is categorically on a different league, like he's the Gojo of this universe. The guy casually takes another step. Each step smashes before him. Xion is dead lost just watching his glory, while the awakener asks for the kid's name. Since the boy refuses to speak, he decides to create a dilemma for him, suggesting that if he doesn't count to 3, bad things will happen. The countdown starts, with the old man gearing up in preparation, and the moment it hits 1, he's already looming over the boy like a ghost from hell. In the end, he doesn't do anything to Xion, questioning why the kid looks geeked out. In reality, our boy can barely hear this man's voice thanks to his eardrums getting rammed. The list of injuries he has are piled up, but the old man doesn't understand this part. The awakener draws his sword, thinking that he should simply cut this boy down if he refuses to talk. The boy regains his hearing and panics, affirming that he doesn't know what's going on, begging for mercy. This is good news to the awakener, who's happy to know the kid isn't a lost cause. He reiterates and asks for the boy's name, who exclaims that it's Xion. This guy is so hilarious he judges our boy for having such a pathetic name, making Xion wonder what kind of name this dude even has to act so Sigma. At that moment, this old overpowered geezer obliterates a boulder, expressing that he's Diodin, and though he introduced his name, our boy has no idea what the hell this old man is doing right now. The awakener is confused and asks the boy to clarify, so Xion roars that he's being called a dumbass and threatened for no reason, and though he feels grateful for having his life saved, he still doesn't get why he deserves the harsh treatment. Calling him dumbass another time, Diodin explains that the boy has been caught in some kind of trap. Ignoring the disrespect, Xion asks for the details, and learns that a snare is actually a phenomenon that occurs when the dungeon's mana is oversaturated. In order to make sure it doesn't collapse, the dungeon helps create another entrance point, leaking out mana from that gap. In other words, it also draws surrounding living creatures in the same manner. That is what a snare is. Diodin emphasizes that most people never get the chance to experience what it's like, so the boy's luck has to be the worst of the worst, adding more fuel to the flame that Xion should murder Manhwa's bitch ass. The awakener calls him a dumbass once more, much to the boy's displeasure. Squiggling his face, he demonstrates exactly why the boy is dumbass, urging him to focus his mana into his eyes. Xion doesn't get what he means until he actually does that, condensing his mana into his eyes. The idea is to use mana to look, helping the boy see through things that he's never seen before. He's terrified of what lies ahead, while Diodin is glad that the kid can finally understand what he's dealing with. The magic beast he saw is a creature with stealth abilities, making light work of its prey before they even know what hit them, just like our boy was about to get swallowed. The same creature was in front of him this entire time, and yet Xion could not detect even a trace of danger. By the way, earlier when he cut down the boulder, Diodin was actually cutting down this second monster, because without the old man's help, our boy would have died without even knowing what hit him. That makes it twice the number of times this man has saved his life, begging the question of just how powerful he is. In an effort to ease his curiosity, the boy desperately asks for Diodin's real identity, who calls him dumbass again, scolding him that he's just good old Diodin. Xion shouts at the overpowered old geezer, asking how he is this strong. When he questions where they even are, Diodin tells him that they are inside a dungeon. The old man casually calls the scorching place his hunting ground and tells the boy to pay close attention since he is about to show what he can do. The worn-out-looking man then pulls out his sword and shouts out Crayon. The moment he does, shockwaves spread through the area, forcing Xion to cover his ears. At first, Xion has no idea what is going on, but when he looks around, he realizes the dungeon is actually crowded with flamebird-like monsters swarming everywhere. Diodin looks excited at the sight of the fight and tells our boy that he is on his own now and should figure out how to survive. Zeon gets thrown into a life or death situation and starts cursing the old man. He looks around, trying to think of anything he can do, but it becomes clear that he is completely surrounded and has nowhere to go. The monsters move far too fast for him to track properly or even dodge in time. They keep landing small attacks on him while tearing apart his clothes bit by bit. Zeon cannot even find a way to escape, and he starts wondering why the creatures keep targeting only his left side again and again. He looks up and desperately tries to shoot sand at the flying beasts, but they easily avoid his attacks and respond with multiple strikes of their own. Our boy feels completely useless compared to the old geezer. He tries to protect his pretty face by raising his arms as attacks keep coming at him from every direction. Zeon realizes that he is going to die soon if he keeps goofing around without doing anything. He feels pathetic thinking that he might die even after being saved twice by the old man. At that moment, he recalls the scene when the old-timer appeared in front of him once again and called out to him. Zeon tries to hear what Dioden is saying, but his ears are ringing badly and he cannot listen properly. He recalls how the old man told him to see through mana instead of relying on his eyes. Even while calling himself a pathetic loser, he refuses to give up and starts searching for a way to sense enemies that his vision cannot track. He slowly gathers mana into his eyes and works on increasing its purity step by step. He focuses hard and tries to feel the flow of mana just like the old man suggested, and this time it finally works as he begins to sense the magic power inside the beasts. Now he can track them, and the moment their mana comes within range, he strikes at the closest point possible, finally taking down the two lava birds that were targeting him. Meanwhile, the old geezer is busy fighting much larger monsters and looks like he is enjoying every second of it. He comments that he cannot even remember the last time he felt this fired up during a fight. He then charges forward and lands a powerful punch, tearing a massive crocodile-like monster clean into two pieces. Just as the old geezer finishes off the creature, he comments that it is a shame the monster was not even a proper match for him. He sounds disappointed since he did not get the thrill he was expecting from the fight. He then sighs and remarks how the number of dungeons has dropped a lot compared to the time when he was younger. Meanwhile, after watching the big bad crocodile fall so easily, Zeon cannot help but feel a bit sorry for it. He struggles to believe how casually the old man killed it, as if it was nothing more than a small lizard. At the same time, he himself is reaching his limit and even lets out a tired laugh at his own situation. Suddenly, a powerful shockwave hits him, forcing him down to his knees as he throws up from the impact. He barely manages to stand again and asks Dioden what just happened. Dioden calmly explains that the shockwave he just felt was actually the roar of the dungeon boss. He goes on to say that every dungeon has a final boss waiting at the end, and the one in this dungeon is the real reason he came all the way here. Just then, a massive drake descends from above, and the old-timer identifies it as a crimson drake. Hearing the term drake, Zeon quickly asks if that means it is a dragon, but Dioden immediately denies it. The old man even comments that it is unfortunate he has to deal with a B-ranked creature instead of facing a real dragon. Even so, this drake is clearly dangerous, as it is surrounded by a strong force field. Zeon recalls hearing that B-ranked and higher monsters possess unique traits similar to humans. Based on the Awakener ranking system, a red force field indicates a close combat type, but when he notices the aura around this drake is blue, he shouts out that it means the creature is a magic type. Before they can react further, the drake unleashes a black flame attack straight at them. Zeon is frozen in shock, unable to even close his mouth, and in fear he loses control completely. At the same time, the old geezer leaps straight toward the source of the attack and brings down his massive sword directly onto the drake's head. The drake quickly recovers and swings back at the old-timer with its claws. Dioden moves to counter the strike using Crayon, but in an unexpected turn, the geezer ends up caught within the drake's grip. The creature immediately takes advantage of this opening and prepares to unleash a fire breath at close range. However, Dioden reacts in time and forcefully shuts the drake's mouth, trapping the flames inside it. He asks the monster if it can feel the pain, and then tells it not to worry because he is about to end it for good. Tightening his grip on his sword, Dioden pushes forward and engages the drake once again, declaring that this will be the last day it stays alive. Meanwhile, Zeon is running for his life. He finds himself stuck in the middle of this overwhelming fight where he cannot even stand still to defend himself properly. He quickly uses his ability and forms a sand wall behind him in an attempt to block the incoming shockwaves. He shouts at the two of them to take their fight somewhere else, while wondering how simple shockwaves can cause this much damage to him. On the other side, the old-timer is clearly enjoying himself. He shouts that this feels just like being at an amusement park. Just then, another shockwave rushes towards Zeon, and this time it comes too suddenly for him to react. He realizes he is done for and gets thrown far away by the impact. He lands in a brutal way and ends up being flung toward the magma, leaving the poor boy frozen as he realizes he is about to die as a pathetic loser who couldn't even find himself a girl. The story then shifts to the old fart, who clearly does not care at all about what happens to our boy. Instead, he keeps bullying the drake and calls it a disgrace to all boss monsters for fighting so pathetically. Pushed over the edge by the non-stop insults, the Drake charges up another breath attack. Seeing that, Dioden smiles, because he did not expect the weakling to have something this fun hidden up its sleeve. The concentrated magic breath tears through the air, obliterating almost everything in its path, and growing larger the farther it travels. After a while, the Crimson Drake finally stops, convinced the madman must have been turned into dust by now. But the moment it hears his voice asking if it is looking for someone, the poor creature realizes it is completely screwed. It lets out a pained roar and turns around, just to see him casually squatting on its body. His sword is buried a full meter deep inside it, and he calmly reveals that he has been searching for one of its kind for a long time. After all, he needs a Crimson Drake heart for his crayon to grow. It is unfortunate, but the beast has no choice but to die for that purpose. With that, he drives the sword even deeper, letting magic seep into its body. The massive creature thrashes violently in pain as the blade pierces straight through it. After absorbing the Drake's heart, Crayon begins to glow with a strong crimson aura. He looks at his sword with satisfaction, pleased that it has broken its limits once again. Right then, his weird little bonding moment with the sword gets interrupted by our boy, who asks why the hell he is talking to his weapon like a lunatic. The guy might be insane, but he is also insanely strong, considering he just soloed a Crimson Drake. Meanwhile, Dioden is surprised that the little twerp is still alive. Our boy let him know that he was screwed, and he crawled back from the brink of death. When the ground collapsed beneath him and he was thrown down, he did not just sit there waiting to die. Instead, he used his sand manipulation to create a cushion that softened the fall. That saved him from turning into human ketchup. Even he cannot believe how good he has gotten at cheating death every time things go south. He adds that constantly getting smacked around by the shockwaves of a certain madman has sharpened his reflexes a lot. Dioden is mildly impressed by that, but right now, there is something far more important to deal with. The old man suddenly grabs him by the shirt like he is handling a clueless toddler, telling him the dungeon is collapsing now that the boss is dead. They need to get out immediately, but our boy is confused about what that has to do with him getting picked up like groceries. The old fart bursts out laughing like he just heard the greatest joke of his life, not because it was actually funny, but because of what comes next. Without warning, he yeets our boy into a tiny black crack that opens in front of them and casually yells, "See ya." Mid-flight, our boy fires off every curse he knows and calls him worse than that bastard Park Manhwa. A second later, he gets spat out on the other side as the black hole cracks open and ragdolls him across the sand a few times. Spitting sand out of his mouth and completely disoriented, he wonders where the hell he ended up now. Dioden calmly explains that they are on the surface. When a dungeon boss is defeated, cracks to the outside open up as exits. Hearing that, he immediately starts complaining that they could have just walked out instead of getting tossed like trash. The old man finally loses his patience and makes one thing clear. He admits that the kid's sand powers are actually quite useful, but in his current state, he is more useless than a blunt knife. Because of that, he gives him two choices. He can head south to New Soul City and keep living like the same dirt-tier nobody he has always been. Or he can choose the fun path. Under his guidance, he will go from a clueless moron to a stronger and faster moron. Zeon is thrown off by that, and asks what exactly he means by following him, and more importantly, how long that would even take. The old warrior bluntly tells him he has no idea. It could take months, years, or even decades. Even he can't predict the future. Faced with a choice that could completely change his life, Zeon stands there unsure what to do. The old man sums it up in the most brutal way possible. He can go back to his same boring life, or he can pick a path where he basically speedruns life with a 99% chance of dying. The boy starts laughing like a maniac and questions if the old-timer has completely lost his mind. Zeon then goes on to fake out how he has got a luxurious palace to return to, along with a comfortable bed, and asks if the old man seriously expects him to give all of that up just to follow a smelly old geezer through burning deserts with no certainty, especially when the old man could drop dead any moment because of his age. The old-timer responds with a yes, making it clear that this is exactly what he expects Zeon to do. Our boy puts on an act and lets out a heavy sigh, showing how painful the decision is, yet he still agrees to follow him. He then spins a convincing story, explaining that whenever someone irritates him, he has to settle things on the spot, but admits that he is currently too weak to take his revenge. He goes on to say that the old man is also on that revenge list, then praises how strong he is compared to anyone he has ever met before. Zeon adds that he doubts he will ever come across someone stronger than him again. As he keeps talking about how confident and positive he feels, the old-timer cuts him off and mocks him, asking if that means he is confident about dying early. Zeon denies it and clenches his fist, declaring that he will become stronger than everyone else. The old geezer replies that with that kind of attitude, he is only heading towards an early ticket to the grave, then tells him to keep following. He continues calling him a dumbass while saying that they still have a long way to go. As the story moves forward after some time, Zeon is drenched in sweat and barely managing to keep up with the old man's pace. He calls out to him, asking him to slow down and take a break since they have already been walking for 6 hours. He keeps shouting, but the old-timer completely ignores him and continues walking in silence. Zeon shouts at himself, saying he is not some moody teenager and wonders why he is dealing with all these sudden mood swings. The heat around him is unbearable, and he starts thinking about just how high the temperature must be. On top of that, the loose sand makes every step difficult, and he begins to worry that he might collapse from heat stroke at this rate. Just when he is about to give up, the old-timer finally turns his attention toward him, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. He calls him a fool who cannot even make use of a small part of his own power. When Zeon looks confused, the geezer reminds him that he is a sand manipulation user, yet he is struggling to even walk properly on sand, which should be the easiest thing for him. When Zeon tries to defend himself by saying that he only awakened a few days ago and is still in F class, Diodon immediately gets annoyed. He tells the boy to stop talking nonsense, making it clear that he does not care about his class. He then questions him, asking if he really believes that people are born as S-class, while he alone is the only one stuck at a disadvantage. The old-timer grabs the boy by his collar and asks him if he is planning to give up just because he thinks he was not blessed. He keeps shouting until he loses his temper and puts the boy back down into the sand, telling him to figure out how to use his ability on his own. Diodon tells him to use his brain and understand his own power, since he should know it best if he wants to break past his limits and become stronger. Just when Zeon starts thinking that the old man might actually be somewhat reasonable, Diodon suddenly starts shouting again and threatens that he will be dead if he cannot figure it out. Zeon starts over again and focuses on his ability. What he knows is that the range of sand he can control is only about 5 meters. He then analyzes the situation and realizes the sand is only ankle deep, and if he can somehow make it as solid as a floor, he might be able to save more energy while moving. Our boy tries to condense the sand and make it solid, and he finally succeeds. Walking in the scorching desert suddenly feels like a breeze for him. However, he soon realizes just how much mana is being drained from him, and he understands that he may not be able to keep this up for long. Zeon then shifts to plan B and tries concentrating mana into his legs instead. This also works surprisingly well. Seeing him full of energy and trying again and again, the old-timer secretly smiles, remembering his own days when he was also an energetic youngster. Even though Zeon keeps saying that he is just an F-class, Diodon remains confident that his control over mana and his potential should be at least level E or D. The old man sees clear potential in the boy. Just then, Zeon discovers something new and starts making a fuss about it. He runs up to the old-timer while shouting that he is simply controlling the sand touching his feet and that walking has become much easier now. As he starts getting cocky and even shows the old man his middle finger while challenging him to do the same, the old-timer punches him on the head. He tells the boy to stop wasting time on useless things unless he wants to drop dead. Zeon falls down immediately and loses consciousness. By the time he wakes up, he finds his dirty face pressed against the sandy floor in the dark. Munching on some beef jerky, the geezer says he is glad the kid finally woke up. It was a real pain carrying him all the way here. As our boy tries to sit up and complains that his whole body is wrecked with injuries, the old fart tosses him a wad of jerky. Then, he tells the kid to carefully listen to a story from his younger days. According to him, those were the good times, back when being weak would not get you killed. In fact, protecting the weak was considered the noble duty of those with power. But that world is long gone now, and he clearly misses it. Storytime ends quickly, and the guru geezer tells him to get up already if he isn't a fan of dying. Our protagonist quietly listens to his teacher instead of talking back. To his surprise, the old man throws him another piece of jerky. The story from long ago makes him realize that the geezer actually has a lot of wisdom. Diodon looks like a dried-up relic, but he carries decades, or maybe even centuries of experience. While watching him eat, he notices something interesting. Even with those ancient worn-out teeth, the old man has no trouble with the jerky. Just by observing, he figures out the trick. Instead of chewing it straight, you soften it with saliva first before biting into it. It is the right way to eat jerky in an arid, dry desert like this. It feels like the old man is not just feeding him, but slowly teaching him how to survive on his own, like showing a man how to fish instead of handing him food. After that, the two head out again under the cover of the night sky. Along the way, he keeps nagging his teacher for another piece of jerky, but the old fart tells him to zip it. Sometime later, the cold starts hitting him hard. He begins sneezing nonstop, his whole body shaking like a vibrating machine in the freezing desert night. Meanwhile, the old man stretches out like he is relaxing on some beach in Hawaii, completely unfazed. At the same time, he still cannot wrap his head around why this lunatic talks to his sword all the time. Then thirst kicks in, and he asks for some water. But Diodon ignores him completely and drinks every last drop for himself. Watching that seriously pisses him off, especially since the greedy guru does not even bother sharing. Even then, he realizes he does not have enough clothing on him. Unlike the old man, he cannot wring out dew from loose fabric to drink. Still, he crouches down and starts licking the tiny drops of dew off his own body. Like a desperate stray puppy, he will do anything to reach his master's level. Seeing that, the old man calls him a dotard, but he argues he is not a dotard, he is a proud moron. Ignoring his nonsense, The old man tells him to shut up and focus on sensing his surroundings. Clueless as usual, he quiets down and tries to listen. After a while, he begins to pick up faint vibrations all around him. Slowly, he realizes they are coming from multiple directions. Before he can even blink, he sees hundreds of glowing eyes surrounding them. They are vicious beasts, ready to tear apart anything they can get their jaws on. Horned hyenas are usually active at night, but unluckily they got caught out at dawn. As the beasts bare their fangs and prepare to rip him to pieces, the old man asks if he's got this, or if he needs Daddy's help. It seems the crazy rubbed off on him too, because he laughs and replies he does not need any help from a dusty old man. Manipulating the sand around him, he prepares for a fight to the death with the stray animals. First, he forms a sand bullet and fires it straight through one of the hyenas. Then, he raises massive spikes of hardened sand, creating a deadly zone that kills anything entering his range. But as the fight drags on, exhaustion starts catching up to him. He yells in frustration, feeling like he is stuck in some endless zombies mode in COD. Pain burns through his chest, and he nearly collapses, realizing he might die from mana exhaustion before the beasts even finish him off. That makes one thing clear: raw power alone is not enough. He needs a smarter way to fight. Summoning another sand bullet in his hand, he starts thinking deeply about how to use his energy more efficiently. But his thinking gets cut short when a hyena lunges in and sinks its teeth deep into his arm. Somehow he manages to shake it off, but the damage is brutal. His arm is torn up with holes like a SpongeBob. Even then, that injury sparks a eureka moment. Those holes teach him the most efficient way to use his sand manipulation. He stands still, quietly planning his next move while the pack charges at him, hungry and ready to tear him apart. Right before they reach him, he unleashes his brand new technique. Hundreds of insanely thin but sharp sand spikes erupt from the ground at once. They pierce through every single beast and turn the entire pack into skewered hyena kebabs. The villain bursts into laughter just like his master. Watching his enemies drop from a single clean strike feels far more satisfying than blowing their heads apart. Wasting mana in a fight is the fastest way to speedrun death. Meanwhile, his precise spike traps that punch clean holes through targets are peak efficiency. Compared to him, the old geezer fights way slower, taking enemies head-on one by one. The hyenas latch onto his arms and bite in, yet the lunatic just laughs like they are tickling him. After having his fun, a violent glint flashes in his eyes as he finally gets serious. The moment Zeon sees that insane expression, he immediately understands what is coming. He braces himself, already dreading dealing with this madness again. With a nasty grin, the old man commands Crayon to annihilate his enemies. In an instant, explosive power erupts and sends shockwaves that blast away sand and beasts alike. Our boy barely manages to shield himself with a wall of sand, while the hyenas are launched like cannonballs into the distance. When everything finally settles, he just stands there in disbelief. The epicenter of the blast and the trail of destruction stretching ahead leave him completely speechless. That makes him question if Dioden is even human, because no normal person could pull that off without using some kind of skill. At the same time, he realizes that getting arrogant around a monster like this is a fast way to die. Meanwhile, Dioden starts coughing hard, choking on the dust he kicked up himself. Taking advantage of that moment, the alpha of the horned hyenas lunges in and pierces him with its lightning-charged horn. Caught off guard, the old man looks down in mild confusion, wondering why the beast has some kind of magic field around it. He clearly underestimated it, since this one is at least B rank. Seeing him in a life-threatening situation, Zeon panics and shouts for him to watch out. Turns out the worry was completely pointless. Dioden casually grabs the hyena's horn like it belongs to him, barely reacting to the crackling lightning surging through it. Our protagonist hits an error 404 screen, unable to process what kind of quantum physics he is witnessing. Even the alpha gets weirded out and backs away when she sees the old freak enjoying her lightning like it is soothing his sore muscles. After his massage, he lets the poor sucker know it's the end of the line. He jumps onto the alpha and drives his sword deep into her body, spraying blood all across the battlefield. Watching that, Zeon realizes he was an idiot for ever worrying about this man. After the fight, the two begin harvesting useful materials from the horned hyenas. Wearing the alpha's hide, our boy asks Dioden when they are finally leaving. He is surprised to see the old man even taking the horns, explaining they are valuable materials for crafting lightning-based weapons. Out of nowhere, the old man tosses him a dagger, handing him a weapon to hunt with. He makes it clear that from now on, the kid has to find his own food. No more freebies. Since horned hyena meat is mostly poisonous, one wrong bite would kill him. Only the muscle from the flank is safe to eat. As Dioden casually cuts out meat himself, he notices the kid just staring and snaps at him to stop gawking. If he wants to survive, he better get moving and secure his own food before sunrise. With that, our boy starts harvesting meat on his own until the sun finally rises. He already looks more experienced compared to before. Even though he still lacks a proper water source, he has plenty of meat stored in his satchel. On top of that, his sandwalking skill makes it a breeze to move during the day. Getting a bit cocky, he taunts the old man, asking if he is struggling to walk and feeling jealous of his neat little ability. This time he actually dodges the man's punch and sticks his tongue out like an annoying brat. But the second strike delivered with crayon knocks some sense into his skull. While he spits out sand, Dioden bluntly tells him that his back hurts like hell, and a cheap walking trick does not make him special. Zeon sulks that he was just messing around. He was already thirsty, and now his mouth is filled with dry sand. Then he notices something is off. His mouth is not actually that dry anymore. The air feels a little moist. For a second, he wonders if he is hallucinating, but the look on Dioden's face confirms it is real. On the other side of the sand dune in front of them lies something every desert traveler dreams of finding: a desert oasis. Walking up the dune, Zeon starts shouting in excitement as he finally gets to see a lake in real life. He ignores all precautions and slides down the sand, desperate for that refreshing, hydrating water. The old geezer clicks his tongue in disappointment, but does not stop him. Our hero runs straight to the edge and dunks his head into the water, letting his dry skin take in the much-needed moisture. He closes his eyes and lets his thoughts drift away. Ever since arriving here, he's been stuck in the burning heat of the desert, and this is the first time he allows his body to cool down. He suddenly snaps out of his thoughts as he notices a bright light deep inside in the depths of the lake. Zeon begins to feel drowsy as he keeps staring at it, slowly running out of air. All of a sudden, Dioden calls out his name and rushes down the slope at full speed. However, our hero stays frozen, unaware that a massive sea monster is slowly approaching him. At the last moment, the old man manages to pull him out just before he gets turned into fish feed. Throwing Zeon onto the ground, Dioden jumps up in the air and faces the fish monster head-on. With one clean strike of his sword, he takes down the huge creature instantly. Meanwhile, our boy watches everything happen but gets distracted by the rainbow forming over the oasis. The old geezer drags the giant fish out of the water and explains that it is a sand angler. The fish uses the light on its head to hypnotize prey before devouring them. His expression suddenly turns serious, and he slams the absolute disobedience out of our boy. The old man then starts scolding him for forgetting everything he was taught and becoming too careless. Dioden continues, saying that reckless fools like him are always the first to die in the harsh, unforgiving environment of the desert. Zeon can only say yes in response, and the old man lets out a sigh. Seeing that his student is listening for once, he drops the topic and instead tells him to start skinning the monster. The sand angler is a C-rank magic beast, and its belly skin is the perfect material for making a robe. Our boy gets confused and asks if the old geezer really needs a robe, which nearly makes him lose it. Having reached his limit for stupidity for the day, he starts roasting the boy and calls him dumber than a brainless starfish. Our hero comically starts bleeding out of his ears again and quickly apologizes with a nervous smile. The old man continues, saying that even though the fish has mutated a lot, it still resembles the species that once lived on Earth. He tells Zeon to look at it carefully since this is his first time seeing a real fish. Our boy comes to the conclusion that fish are really horrifying and then gets to skinning. Seeing how badly he is handling it, Dioden tells him to stop treating the fish like he is giving it a massage to his grandma. Our hero tells him to mind his own business, but then focuses back on the task. He realizes that the skin is too tough to cut with a normal knife. Zeon then channels mana into his blade, sharpening it so it can cut through the skin easily. He uses the knife to scrape off the scales and turns them into small needles. For the thread, he decides to use the tendons that connect the meat to the bones. Even with all his Oscar-worthy ideas, the final result turns into a complete mess of a robe. Lounging against the dead fish, the old man roasts him for wasting such a good catch on something so useless. But our boy does not stop there and decides to try again since he has plenty of materials left. A few hours later, he finally succeeds and holds up a finished robe that actually looks decent. Zeon gets a little carried away and says he could probably sell these for profit and even open his own tailor shop. The old man calls his name, which makes him react quickly as he shouts that he is not handing over the robe. However, Dioden instead tells him to stop messing around while holding up a large sack-like organ that is still dripping blood. He tells our boy to start eating this gallbladder since it is a very rare and powerful medicine. Zeon tries to argue, but the old man confirms his fear that he will be killed if he refuses. He then drops the heavy organ into our boy's hands while complaining that his arms are tired. Looking at the disgusting mass in front of him, our hero hesitates for a moment, but then starts eating like a starving man. Even though it tastes more bitter than orange juice after toothpaste, he keeps gobbling it down, not wanting to get beaten to death. Strangely, after a few bites, he feels like his hunger is still not satisfied and continues eating more and more. Just as he finishes it, the old man warns him that now it is time for him to burn. That catches Zeon off guard as he wonders what the old geezer is talking about. Right after that, he feels his throat tighten as he starts choking. On the inside, it feels like a Chernobyl reactor is going off. His whole body goes out of control as the intense heat spreads everywhere. He begins screaming in unbearable pain while the old man tells him to stop acting like a child. He then starts monologuing, saying that everything in life is like this oasis, that everything will disappear as if it never existed. He explains that the sand anglers are reborn, keeping the cycle balanced. Before he can continue, our boy cuts him off and tells him to stop with the soppy emotional stories and help him. Even while watching the kid writhe on the ground like an earthworm after it touches salt, he does nothing and simply goes to sleep. The next day, Zeon finally opens his eyes and sees the old man staring down at him with an evil smile. That nearly scares the soul of his body, and he shouts at the old man for nearly giving him a heart attack. They exchange a few more nice words before the old man asks how he feels now. Our boy then realizes that something in his body has changed. He feels much lighter, his muscles feel stronger, and the mana inside him feels close to overflowing. Testing his new and improved powers, he asks what happened since it feels like he has taken some super soldier serum. The old man explains that it is because of the fish's gallbladder. He says that the organ works like a cheat item for surviving the desert, making a person much stronger. It is something very valuable, which makes our boy feel uneasy that he was allowed to use it. Dioden brushes it off, saying he only did it because the kid was too weak and he did not want to slow down because of him. Zeon argues that he is useful at times, but the old man tells him to be quiet and start eating since they are not leaving until the fish is fully consumed. 4 days later, they finally manage to reduce the sand angler down to nothing but clean bones. The old man then says it is time to move again. Zeon smiles and puts on his new cloak as they continue their journey. A few days later, strong dusty winds blows toward them, marking the start of a sandstorm. Thanks to his new strength, our boy is not affected much and is surprised that the old man has enough stamina to keep going without slowing down. Dioden has not spoken for days, which makes Zeon wonder if the old man is going through some kind of male menopause. They have been walking for 2 weeks now, which makes him question whether the old man even knows where they are going. Just then, a giant ant monster appears behind Zeon, but he quickly responds with a sand beam attack. He wonders how much farther they have to go, but then notices that the ant monster is still alive. That gets his attention as he admits the creature is tougher than expected. He had hoped to pass through without trouble, but things do not go his way. Using his sand abilities, he senses more ants approaching and decides to face them directly. Driving his hand into the sand, he forces the ants to rise up to the surface as they begin to surround him. Slightly bored out of his mind from wiping out swathes of ants, Zeon continued blasting them with sand. His technique had noticeably improved in a short amount of time. Come to think of it, days with sandstorms were actually pretty great for his power. There was a practically infinite supply of ammunition everywhere he looked. The geezer's pace was unforgiving, though. He never slowed down while leaving the dumbass to take care of the trailing nuisance. Zeon complained about the lack of a single shred of loyalty. No wonder the geezer was still alone in his old age. While he was worrying whether Dioden could hear his trash talk, Zeon picked up something troublesome within his 10-meter radius detection range. He was always on alert, never dropping his guard. It allowed him to react instantly whenever a magic beast appeared. But this time was different. What he sensed at this moment sent a tingle down his spine. What he detected wasn't just a beast, it was terror incarnate. What followed was a stampede of countless ants spewing out of the ground. The army of pests came out of nowhere. He turned to the old man for some help, acknowledging that he was out of his depth. But Dioden just looked at him and sat his old ass down to watch. If he had popcorn, he would have been snacking. Zeon knew that no help was coming. Besides, he can't keep crying to the geezer when things get tough forever. There was no way that old fart didn't sense what was coming. This was a quest, a test of sorts. Whether there are 1,000 or 10,000 of these critters, bugs are just bugs. So, he formed a sphere of rolling sand and trapped the entire army. It was a struggle to keep it together, made even harder when another batch cropped up to interrupt his flow. Zeon's confidence crumbled as he was dragged away like a bag of trash. He resorted to challenging the ants to fight him one-on-one like a man instead of ganging up. His provocation was useless. They continued to swarm him like he was the sweetest treat in the desert. Fortunately, he found an opening to harden some sand beneath his feet, using it as a platform for flight. Even with increased verticality, the ants found a way to reach him by forming a damn anthill. He desperately flew up to higher ground for a better view of the situation. Zeon thought he would be safe up there, but he was sorely mistaken. Who would have thought that giant ants could form an even more gigantic anthill by linking themselves together? He nearly shat himself when his sand flyer was stopped in its tracks. The screeching the bugs produced was haunting as they held on to Zeon's foot like their lives depended on it. He was helplessly tugged along by his ankle and slammed into the sand without mercy. It took Zeon a minute to get back up, huffing and puffing for air as he puked blood. When he looked up, the old man was still watching with a disinterested look. That indifference gave him enough gas to keep going. He wanted to prove that he could survive this ordeal. For the first time since the fight started, Dioden showed some positive reaction. He liked the kid's spirit even though he's still a dumbass. In a world turned to shit with nothing but sand, Zeon's ability is nothing short of a blessing. After all, he could have used and honed that power to live a life of luxury, but that would have been the end of it. A shallow existence. Those narrow-minded idiots are obsessed with illusions. They don't even know why the world became like this in the first place. An awakened is meant to master, utilize, and evolve their own skills to the absolute limit. This power is not meant for some factory-made cookie-cutter soldier. Diodin might be one of the very few who still remember. Most have forgotten about the tragedy that shook the very foundations of the world 100 years ago. Back then, Diodin was useless beyond help. He had lost count of how many people died in vain right before his eyes. His comrades, neighbors, and even his family were victims of the catastrophe. What hurt the most was the loss of his daughter. He had never felt so powerless. He lost everyone important to him while he froze like a total fucking idiot. This kid, Zeon, is different. He never faltered, even when the odds were unfairly stacked against him. He might have the potential to become anything he'd want to be as long as he's insane enough to throw himself into the fray, crossing the line between life and death. From tiptoeing that line, one will undoubtedly grow at an astonishing pace. Looking like he had lost any semblance of sanity, Zeon laughed at the face of the ant army. In the middle of the battle, he devised a skill that created an ultra-high-pressure compressed sand missile. It was a simple and crude invention, but its destructiveness was the real deal. Each missile he launched was packed with compressed gravity, wind, and every bit of energy he could use. It was greater than the sum of its parts, a harmonious synergy that increases the power tenfold. The ants failed to kill him before he adapted, so it's their turn to get massacred. Diodin smirked at the punk who was getting all excited with his little invention. By the time Zeon was done bombarding the bugs, the surrounding terrain had been drastically altered, cratered in multiple spots. He was very pleased with himself. This was a cause for celebration. Zeon was so excited to brag about his W to the old geezer that he did not notice the threat coming from his flank. The biggest ant in the colony had surfaced and got a hold of him with a tight mandible hold. It crept up on him without making a single sound. There was no way these critters had the capacity to use a high-level stealth skill. The foreign feeling he sensed inside his body made his predicament make sense. He was poisoned. He's been steadily losing control of his mana. The poison must be blocking his newly established mana points. Restricted and powerless, all he could do was bark curses. The giant ant was immune to his foul mouth. He was just another prey that must be hunted. When Zeon regained consciousness, he found himself deep in an underground tunnel surrounded by his sworn enemies. It was an ant nest. Upon sensing that food had arrived, the colony's larvae skittered towards the paralyzed human. Their ear-piercing screech and alien look were off-putting to say the least. Once they were sure that he was not a threat, larvae crawled all over his body, looking to get a taste of his meaty flesh. These suckers were strong enough to pierce through skin and bite through everything beneath. Despite being the main dish on the disgusting feast, Zeon couldn't move a muscle. At this rate, he'll be eaten alive. Slowly, as his vision dimmed, he saw his life flashing before his eyes. What he witnessed on that depressing trip down memory lane ignited something deep within. Zeon regained some of his willpower to fight through the poison and crush one of the parasites trying to snack on his meat. Seeing the larva food move alerted the ants watching the feast. He laughed at himself for daring to close his eyes like a coward in the first place. Life is so unfair. The flashback of his entire life didn't show a single good memory. How could he accept dying like such a loser chud? The near-death experience must have pushed him past his limits and increased the markings on his forearm. Accessing the sand beneath his feet, he one-shotted all ugly larvae in his vicinity with a spiky explosion. The ant army panicked. Their captive was supposed to be free food. But now, Zeon is back up on his own 2 feet with dozens of compressed missiles floating all over him. He looked down at his forearm and noticed his rank had increased. The rank up came with poison cleansing, stamina restoration, and an overall increase in his overflowing mana capacity. The second sandy line on his mark was the culmination of his non-stop hard work over the past few days with the geezer. From raw power to mana cap, everything was on an entirely different level compared to his F-rank capabilities. And yet, he had all the sand missiles at his disposal, still couldn't land a single scratch on the Ant Queen. The giant bug retaliated, attacking him with her many fast-moving limbs. That simple but effective strike smashed through rock and pulverized it into sand. Zeon continued his sandy barrage, but the Queen's carapace was simply impenetrable. At this point, he would take even just a little dent in that black exoskeleton. The Queen's defense was insane. After a few more wasted tries, he accepted that sand missiles were not going to cut it, no matter how compressed and destructive they were. In that case, he'll just have to rethink his whole strategy. There must be a way to break an unbreakable armor. Smashing and piercing were out of contention. Maybe he could try to rip the tough carapace right off. To do just that, Zeon manipulated every grain of sand he could control to completely blanket the Queen's entire body. He pictured a tight ripping motion around the hard shell in his mind, twisting and peeling the whole thing off from the flesh. It effectively made the Queen screech in pain. In retaliation for his brutal attempt at undressing a queen, she started coalescing pure mana in her mandibles. She did not fight against the rip, but instead readied a fearsome ranged counterattack. Zeon was not the only crazy bastard in this ant nest. The mana gathered produced ultra-high frequency waves that made his ears bleed. At this rate, his brain might just explode from the pressure. The straightforward fight from earlier had turned into a battle of grit and pain tolerance. Zeon thought his crazy plan to undress the Queen was a good play. Who would have thought that the colony's leader had something up her many sleeves? Bleeding through his ears and eyeballs, the kid welcomed the challenge, even though there's a good chance he would die. It was truly simple. Whoever dies first is the loser. This guy was a true hater. He would readily die with his enemy if there was any chance of winning. The agonizing standstill came to a close when Zeon felt his consciousness shatter. Something snapped inside his body, severing its connection with his mind. He might have reached his absolute limit in there. His useless body could not keep up with the challenge. He's tired of being so pathetic and weak. The geezer must have heard his innermost thoughts while he was picking Zeon up from the dirt. With that easygoing smile, Diodin reprimanded the fool for almost dying. Miraculously, Zeon re-established the connection between his body and mind. He even joked that he'd let the geezer have the last hit. There was no need for any more meddling, though. That C-rank wolf ant queen was far stronger than Zeon, yet he did not give up, fought until the very end, and earned the right to live by being persistent and creative. Diodin was basically showering him with praise for the first time since they teamed up. It was a shame Zeon's eardrums were completely ruptured. He couldn't hear a word he just said. Acknowledging his defective eardrums, the old man carried his limp body close to the corpse of the wolf ant queen. They reached a small clearing where a glimmering sphere had been neatly placed. Zeon asked the geezer what was up, and Diodin started scribbling on the walls. He explained that the sphere was the queen's egg. It's medicine, strawberry-flavored too. The kid was confused by his wall scribblings, but it sounds like he's being pushed to eat some unknown material again. Just in case a repeat incident occurs, Zeon asked if ingesting this shit was going to hurt like the sandangler's gallbladder. Diodin spoke up and admitted that eating the egg would most probably lead to death, but Zeon couldn't hear that on account of his severe ear injury. Ultimately, he chose to trust the old man's call and inched his mouth close to the glittering egg. He's just a street rat from Neo Seoul. He doesn't even know what strawberries taste like, but if it has the same flavor as this ant egg, then strawberries must be fucking delicious. Zeon jokingly asked for more, but his countenance paled when he felt something unusual upon ingesting the egg. Spikes of blood protruded from all over his body. The bleeding that just ceased started back up again. He was undergoing the process known as organ inversion. It literally means twisting and turning of the intestines and neighboring body parts. Normally, the queen ant's egg is used as a lethal poison. Even a small amount of that nasty thing would forcibly invert a human's internal organs. The consumer's organs are pierced and twisted. They were being stirred by a thorny stick. Most people would undoubtedly die from the agony and shock of organ inversion. As the debilitating pain clouded his mind, Zeon cursed at the old man for putting him through hell time and time again. Then again, Diodin was just trying to increase his chances of survival in this crazy world by letting him experience a level of pain that would break the strongest wills. The next phase of organ inversion was throwing up gallons upon gallons of blood like a leaky faucet in a horror movie. At this point, it's a miracle that Zeon was still standing. Slowly succumbing to blood loss and going into shock, he started to reminisce about the past few days of adventure. He thought he finally found someone to trust, but Diodin might just be a sadistic old fart after all. Maybe he was just another dumbass to Gramps. Slipping and falling into his own pool of blood, Diodin watched and let him writhe on the ground. While the kid was convulsing down there, the old man rummaged through the queen ant's corpse. It did not take him long to find what he was looking for, yanking out a piece of shiny material from the queen's lower half. He giggled. As expected, a beast's mana stone is on a completely different level from the minded stuff. This one was nothing short of a jackpot. Diodin deemed the ant bodies useful in the future, so he stored them in some independent space. His recent actions earned him the ire of his sword, Crayon. He admitted that he might have pushed the kid too far this time. Still, there was no other way. If he's weak, he dies. That's just how fate works. Besides, Crayon knows as much as the geezer that they don't have much time left. By sunrise, Zeon continued to beat unbeatable odds by waking up after napping like a blood-drained baby. The first thing he saw was that annoying smile plastered on a wrinkly face. Instinctively, the disrespectful brat attacked his mentor. Diodin firmly warned him against kicking up dust while he's still being nice. Zeon was not listening. He had a much more potent batch of sand missiles loaded and locked onto the geezer's position. Diodin tried to warn him against acting out, but the kid actually went through with the attack. You can't blame him either. He was moving on autopilot. Zeon was acting purely under the impression that the old man tried to kill him on purpose. His sand buried Diodin deep. He was moving and speaking like a vengeful spirit with a grudge to settle. In addition to the waves of sand, he also accessed the spiky stalactites hanging from the walls of the ant colony. He used the fine grains to cut off one of the giant spikes, bringing it down on the old man. That series of attacks completely gassed him out. The combo was impressive, but so was the mana and stamina cost. While he was going on and on about an attempt on his life, the old man simply sighed and seriously questioned his intelligence. Sure, the queen's egg might have some toxins that could have rotted his brain, but still, that's not an excuse to at least use what's left in that thick skull of his. Zeon was astounded that the geezer just stood in his position and took his full combo without as much as a single scratch. If Diodin really wanted to kill him, he'd be dead by a single flick to the forehead. Why would someone as powerful as the old man go through the trouble of poisoning a wormy bastard? The clarification was a little insulting, but Xian had to admit that it made a ton of sense. The geezer elaborated that the queen's egg is a lethal poison that twists and stabs at the consumer's organs. Survive that, and it would also flush out every toxin and impurity from every corner of your body. Depending on how it was used, it could be a deadly poison or a heavenly medicine. After all the internal filth was expelled from Xian's body, mana will quickly fill up the empty spaces where impurities used to reside. He must have felt the change when he attempted to kill Diodin for real. By the old man's estimate, the kid's mana must have increased by at least 3 or 4-fold. After getting the proper explanation, Xian profusely apologized, jumped into the geezer's arms, and excused his actions as those of someone who wasn't in the right state of mind. Diodin did not make a big deal of the fuss. He was just grossed out by being hugged by a snotty dude. Thankfully, that egg also healed his injuries. His eardrums are intact again, and he could hear insults once more. Xian refused to let go despite the geezer's protests. Internally, Diodin was conversing with his blade about the risk they took in letting the kid eat the egg. In truth, Xian was only partly faking his tearful apology to avoid angering his eccentric mentor any further. Still, the geezer thinks that the risk was worth it. If the kid doesn't get strong fast enough, he'll be nothing but dead weight. Sometimes reckless gambles pay off, like today. Diodin picked up Xian like he weighed nothing. It's time to get out of this gloomy ant colony. He was a bit confused as to why the old man grabbed him again when he was now perfectly capable of walking on his own. Well, since they have wasted enough time underground, there's only one quick way to resurface. When the old man pointed at the spiky ceiling of the colony, Xian knew that he was getting hurt whether he approved or not. A few moments later, the peaceful surface of the sandy desert was interrupted by the sudden emergence from below. Diodin was fun, taking charge and going fast. Xian was not a big fan of his reckless pace, though. Why can't they just travel like normal people for once? The geezer would have been open to the idea of leisurely traversing the barren land if the dumbass had not slept for 4 straight days. Diodin felt bad for whoever would marry this pathetic kid in the future. The joking and teasing paused when the geezer saw something from a distance. Xian alleged that nothing could surprise him anymore, but quickly shut his trap as soon as he followed the old man's line of sight. Up ahead was a giant land tortoise the size of a small island. The beast was nearly 30 kilometers away from their position, but its sheer size made it very visible. Diodin explained that the tortoise was known as the Mobile Fortress, Archelon, a bunch of pain in the ass that never gave him a moment's peace. The tortoise itself is classified as a B-rank magic beast, but its defenses far surpassed many A-rank monsters. After taming the beast, they modified the shell and used it as transport, a mobile fortress. Diodin implored the dumbass to take a good look at the Archelon. Seeing such a thing for the first time would undoubtedly make anyone ponder how vast the world truly is. There are true monsters capable of taming and riding a beast like that out there in the wild. When the mobile fortress passed them by, both the old man and the dumbass were just the size of dirt stuck between the Archelon's toes. When the tortoise stopped moving forward, someone jumped from the shell to the ground. Based on how familiar whoever this jumper was to the geezer, it sounded like they knew each other. It had been a long time since these two old bags of bones got together.